If you're trapped in a toxic relationship and you're struggling trying to figure out how do you find your identity again? How do you actually get to a place of having freedom in your life where right now it feels like hectic, it feels like chaos, it feels like confusion, then this is a place I want you to hang out just for a minute. A process inside of what I do is helping people rewire their mindset, their thought process, because we find a lot of women that get stuck in toxic narcissistic relationships with abusive men. And simply put, they're able to see that there is freedom on the other side of having closure and having clarity about their situation. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness about narcissistic abuse. I'm on here showcasing and talking through what I did, how this actually went down in my life of me showing up as an abusive asshole to my wife and to my children. And in result of doing this, it provides a level of closure and a level of understanding to you about how narcissistic abuse actually works and actually happens versus just you thinking someone is self-absorbed by just snapping selfies of themselves. So inside of all this, if you want to know more, go to rawmotivations.com. When we're talking about this piece of helping you heal and moving from a place of trapped to freedom, we first have to understand what you're trapped in. The toxic relationship that has you oftentimes confused of what's actually going on. Does he love you or does he not? Because you have a relationship, but it's not locked in. It's not defined. He won't commit to different things. Or he's committed to different things, but he still won't show up in a way that's helping you blossom and grow and develop who you are. And as a result, you're left kind of feeling alone. Sometimes this is self-isolation because you pull away from friends and family because you're embarrassed that you're in a relationship that isn't really that great. Sometimes it's more isolation that he puts you in because he's conditioned you to only spend time with him, or he's conditioned you that when you go spend time with family that it just feels bad and he would rather you spend time with him, and ultimately gets to a place that you're left feeling alone. A lot of times we have people that are alone, that are confused, that are just lost. And when this is happening, you start to struggle to figure out even your own identity. Your identity gets sucked into the vortex of his identity. And as a result, you start giving all of your attention and affection to him. And as a result, you're not able to even see you. So many times I talk to women every single day that have lost themselves, that have been sucked into this type of a toxic relationship and can't find freedom anymore in their own life. Peace is a word that just doesn't exist in their vocabulary because it feels so odd. It feels so weird to even consider that. So in order to help you move from trapped to freedom, we need to be able to move you into a place of rewiring your mindset. Now, consider for a moment that rewire sounds very close to rewrite. We are not rewriting history. That's actually what the narcissist does. He goes in and he gaslights you and he tells you that never happened. You're overreacting. I can't believe you'd think that. That wasn't how it went down. You're not remembering it correctly. Gaslighting, rewriting history, going back and changing something from what was true, this actually happened, to what was false, that didn't happen. So we're not rewriting. That's important for us to be able to understand early on. We're rewiring. And rewiring is the opposite. So it's going back in and helping you understand that there's certain things that have been impressed upon you that you believe, certain things that he's told you, certain lies that you start to see and think that are real. So we're trying to rewire the process of gaslighting, the process of lying to you, and getting you to a place where you can actually see the truth. Well, what does that actually look like? When we talk through this piece of rewiring, it's looking at what was originally false and being able to put it back into truth. So the narcissist takes truth and puts it false. We need to bring falseness back into truth. We need to help you actually see the reality of what you're struggling in. Many people struggle to see the reality because they're stuck in it. You can't see the forest because of the trees. You can't see where you're at because of everything that is in and upon you. You're inside a toxic relationship. But if I say you're in a toxic relationship, you're like, ew, that doesn't really feel good because it's not really toxic. It's just not that great. We just have poor communication. He just struggles in showing up. He's not very vulnerable. He's emotionally immature. He was abused as a child. And you'll make up a lot of excuses that put up with the abuse that you're currently having. This is why it's very similar to Stockholm Syndrome, because you're falling in love with your captor who's abusing you. You're falling in love with a person who doesn't actually give a shit about you, but you keep making up excuses to be with him. Does this resonate? Because where you are right now is very crucial and very important that if we don't help you actually rewire your mindset will stay stuck. And your mindset will stay stuck by believing different stories. Now, we're all made up of stories. You have a story about your life. I have a story about my life. You have a story about what I think about you and what you think about me and vice versa. There's stories everywhere. But the problem is when these stories get affected by the narcissistic guy that you're with. Because you'll start hearing from him, oh, this is what's happening. And you start believing his story. And it leaves you stuck in a version of reality that's actually not true. But it's fake. It's false because he's making this up. He's trying to be able to impress this and put this on you so that you get convinced that it's okay to be abused. Ultimately, he's trying to look at how does he protect his image? How does he protect his money? How does he protect what he wants in his life? If that means he has to control or manipulate you, well, so be it. Because that's all he's focused on. He's focused on himself. This is what my life was made up of for many years. I was only focused on what I wanted, which led to multiple affairs, which led to gaslighting, emotional manipulation, led to many different things that happened to my wife. And I was saying, hey, this is what I want, so let me get what I want, even if it hurts and impacts other people in a negative way. I didn't care. There wasn't a part of me that showed up with thinking, oh, this is a bad idea, I shouldn't do this. No, I was just like, oh, this sounds good, let me do this. Oh yeah, it might cause that, don't really care. So you need to understand, he's putting you in situations to get used to and accept the abuse. This is why we have to rewire the mindset. And rewiring the mindset, like I said, is going from false to true, which means we have to break down the stories that you're telling yourself. We have to break down the things that you're saying, the things that you're justifying, the excuses that you're making to stay in a toxic relationship. You might be thinking, well, I don't know for sure if he's a narcissist and I can't diagnose him, so I can't leave. Well, that's an excuse. That's a story that you're believing because abuse has no limits. Abuse is just abuse. Doesn't matter if it has narcissism or BPD or psychopath, whatever it is, abuse is abuse. It doesn't matter what label's on it. Don't wait for a label to actually move out. Don't wait for a label to actually heal yourself. Don't wait for a label to actually get to a place where you're mentally and emotionally and physically safe. Just looking for a label. There's lots of different stories that you're going to come up with. You're going to tell yourself that he loves you and ignore all of the actions that prove otherwise. You're going to gaslight yourself saying that he's faithful, but you keep ignoring the text messages you're getting from other women. You keep ignoring how he keeps disappearing and not being vulnerable with what's actually going on. You keep ignoring that there's no transparency in the marriage. He expects to be able to look at your phone, but you're not allowed to touch his. Something might be going on there. Now, you get some people that like raise their hand and be like, but what about people's privacy? Well, if you want privacy, then maybe stay single. Because relationships mean you actually interact and share vulnerably your lives together. And if that's not what you want, don't get married. Don't get together. So you need to understand you're going to tell yourself stories. And these stories are going to control your perception and your perspective about him and about the relationship. And if you're not careful, you will tell yourself a story that's not true. You'll see this all the time after the relationship. Maybe you've already left. Maybe you've gotten out of the relationship and you look back and you're like, but it was so good. We had so many good times. There was a lot of things that happened that I really enjoyed. Like, I can't believe, how could any of that be false? And it's like you're looking back at a mountain range. Far in the distance, you're seeing a mountain range, that mountain range looks at a far distance, this looks like a tiny, massive mountain. I don't know why I said tiny, massive. We're just going to stick with it. Looks like very tiny in the distance, but it also looks massive, right? Because it just looks like one giant mountain. But then if you took a plane and you flew over the mountain range, you would actually see that there's made up of different mountains all put together. There's different crags and crevices and cliffs and peaks and pits, all different things around that make up this mountain range, ups and downs moving up, but far away it looks like a giant mountain. But when you get over it, you see, oh, there's actually some different dips inside of this. There's some different aspects to the mountain. Because when you're far away, you only see one perspective. You only see almost like a two-dimensional piece until you get above it, until you start to realize, if I look down on this from a 30,000-foot view, it's a lot different. What I have you consider is right now, when you look at your relationship, you're looking at it from one perspective. When you get above it and you start looking down, you're like, oh, yeah, there's a lot more things that are going on that I don't want to admit. There's a lot more nuances that he's saying that's slowly eroding at your confidence, slowly eroding at who you are, slowly breaking you down and putting you from a place of freedom back into being trapped. Like, if you look at it, there's a perspective that he's shifting to you that's adding a prison bar in your life. There's a story that he's telling you about you, that you're not good enough, that you're not good with the kids, that you're not a good mom, that you're not worthy. He's telling this subtly to you that adds another prison bar in your life. It's a piece that he continues to manipulate and gaslight you that adds another prison bar in your life. And all of a sudden you get to the place where you're looking out of the prison that you built inside this relationship. Because you let him actually control this. You let him dictate your worth, your value. And all of these things get you to a place that you remain shackled inside this relationship, having different patterns and behaviors that have left you stuck, abdicating your power and authority to another man that tells you your worth and your value. Can I tell you right now that no man can do that? Like, he doesn't have the right or authority to dictate your value or worth, but you have intrinsic value as just being a human being on this planet, being a creation of God, being a creation of the divine, and being able to be here and actually say, this is who you are. That's amazing. That's beautiful. And that's wonderful. And someone else is degrading that and putting that down and putting you in a box and saying, nope, you are trapped and you are here and you are my creation, the person that I want to be able to control and manipulate. No more. It's time you actually did something about it to move from trapped to freedom. Because if I can help you move that direction, I will show you the path. I will show you how we help people rewire their mindset. How we help walk you through the steps so that this guy no longer has manipulation and control over you. So he no longer dictates your worth or your value, but you're able to actually look in the mirror and be confident in who you are today.